Hello, everyone. I am Aubrey. I am a life coach, and you are here for episode 2 of Behind the Scenes, where I go behind the scenes with amazing people who are creating incredible impact in the world. And just a quick bit of background before I introduce my guest today. This whole idea came from wanting more playfulness in my life. I used to want to be a radio DJ when I was a kid, and I created like radio shows on cassette tapes, and then I created like playlists for all my friends, and then I always wanted to do a podcast throughout my entire life. But I never knew what to podcast about. I never knew like all the fears of being like not funny enough or not good enough, or wouldn't have anything to talk about, although that seriousness and heaviness came into play to the point that I wouldn't even create like a video, even though I knew that through my coaching, the way I wanted to connect to people was through video. But I just got stuck. So in an effort to create more playfulness, my coach Vanessa challenged me to create this show because I have an insane fascination with anything behind the scenes. I love how things work, and I love how people work. And actually that's kind of like why I love to coach so much too, because I just love figuring out how people work and helping them upgrade themselves to new levels. And so that's how this podcast was born, was to just create more playfulness in my life, because I know that when I am playing and being creative, I am a better coach and I'm a better person, and therefore I can make more impact on the world. So with that, I am so excited to announce that my guest today is the master of play, the Jason Goldberg.
Woo! Wait, hold on. Am I allowed to cheer for myself, or is that like?
Yes, you're totally allowed to share.
Okay.
There's no rules in this. I call it a podcast, and it's not a podcast; it's a web show.
Totally. Every time I hear podcasts, like I want to be like in either in somebody's bosom, or I want to be in like a space capsule while I'm listening to it. Like that's what it sounds like to me.
Just a quick few things about Jason, and then I'll let him speak for a minute. He is an award-winning entrepreneur. He's worked with NASA. He has a TEDx talk about manufacturing fascination, which falls right in line with my whole fascination of behind the scenes. He is the best-selling author of this book, Prison Break, which everybody should read. He is currently in his last couple of days of enrollment for an 8-week program he created called Playful Prosperity, which I am in and a couple of my friends are in, and it's going to rock. And he is a former rapper who opened for the Wu-Tang Clan once. So Jason, welcome to episode 2 of Behind the Scenes.
This is awesome. I didn't realize it was called Behind the Scenes. I freaking now I love it even more, because I love that you made it your fascination with like how things work and how things are born, and like made that into your thing. That's so freaking badass. So super excited to be here. Love your energy, love your spirit. Was a total hell yes when you invited me on here. And like we talked about before you went live, your first guest was your coach Vanessa. Now it's me. Like I am so gonna let everybody down, because Vanessa is such a badass. I cannot wait to let every one of your viewers down. So get ready for just supreme mediocrity in this interview.
Right, yeah. I'm sure.
And hi to the people who are on. I'm seeing comments already pop up. Jen, hi. Oh. Sue is here. Sue is in Playful Prosperity with you. Joanne, hi, everybody. So great to see you guys.
This is so great. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have any questions at all during this podcast, please feel free to post them. I'm pretty new to like reading comments and talking at the same time, but I will do my best to see if anyone's asking anything, and we'll address it.
Nice.
So are you ready to hit it?
I am so friggin' ready right now.
Cool. So I thought this would be kind of fun. And to be honest, I'm totally copying you, but I'm choosing to call it a tribute to you, because I actually first found you through the Not So Serious Life web show that you hosted with Steve Chandler.
Yes.
And you had a special way of asking questions. So I thought maybe today you could pick the questions I'm going to ask you by picking from these 5 cereal boxes.
This is so awesome. And if anybody doesn't know why the cereal boxes are significant, you are dead to me. Okay. So sorry, I don't want you to spit all over your computer. Okay, hold on. I need to see the choices again. What were the choices?
Okay. So we've got Fruit Loops, Cocoa Krispies, Apple Jacks, Pops, and Corn Flakes.
I haven't had cereal
Frosted Flakes.
so long. Oh my God. I want to go with Fruit Loops, but my intuition, and in the personal growth world, we always listen to our intuition, because if not, people won't love us anymore. I'm going to go for Pops. I got to go Corn Pops.
Ooh, Pops. All right, let's find out. Filling these today, I was like starting to open it up and I was going to do all this like special taping, and then I realized I could just open up the bottom and throw them in.
Exactly what I used to do.
Professional, like I just opened this and the question's just there.
That's exactly what I did on the Not So Serious Life. I opened from the bottom. You nailed it.
Woo! All right, first question. Ooh, this is a big first question.
Oh, God, I'm screwed.
Okay, the question is, how does playfulness change the world? But I'm going to throw a little bit of context into that.
Okay.
I had kind of hoped this was going to come later because I thought you would sort of answer this with all your questions. But the context I have is that we're in a really, like, a strange upheaval in the world right now in this political climate. So I would love to know through that, and maybe the answer is the same, but through that, how does playfulness change the world?
Yeah, that's a gret question. I don't know that playfulness changes the world directly. I think playfulness changes us, right? And then it's like collectively, if you put a drop of food coloring into a big thing of water, it changes the entire color of the water, right? So like us showing up more playful in life kind of colors the water around us, but it starts with us. I think it's important to maybe even back that up a little bit and kind of define playfulness the way that I would define it, because I think a lot of people have an aversion to the term playful or play in general, because they think that it means that it's literally like, oh, you're going to play all day, as in like you're going to throw Frisbees and you're going to like, throw water balloons at people, or you're going to get drunk all day and like not do anything purposeful with your life and just be aimless and wandering around. But hey, you're playing, so good for you. And that's not playfulness to me. For me, when I talk about playfulness, and I have these two bracelets on my wrist that you won't be able to read, but one of them says spirit of play. And to me, a spirit of play is having a more lighthearted approach to the world around us. When we're heavy and we're serious, when we're doing the opposite of playfulness and we're serious, then opportunities to create the world we want, opportunities to show more love, opportunities to be of more service, opportunities to be creative in general or to be creative in a business sense, making money, making impact. All of those things, even if we're ridiculously smart and we have a lot of inspiration around us, it is exponentially harder for us to see those opportunities, to create those opportunities, to execute on those opportunities, to spread those possibilities when we're super heavy and we're taking everything too seriously, when we're taking everything too personally, when we're making everything too significant. So if you contrast that with what it looks like to live in a spirit of play, you're still very sincere about the work you do. You're still very sincere about, showing up in a powerful way for yourself or your family or your friends or your community or your job or your company or your employees or whatever it is. You're very sincere about that, but you don't attach so much heaviness. You don't attach so much significance to it. So if we were able to live our lives on a daily basis with 5% less seriousness and 5% more playfulness or sincerity, then what we currently see as our only options to solve problems in the world would be expanded to the point where they wouldn't be these reactionary, lack-based, fear-based solutions. They would be things that actually move the consciousness of the world forward, that would actually move the people and the challenges of the world forward. So super long answer short, playfulness is what allows us to be creative enough to find solutions to problems that don't hurt people or make us feel heavy about life in the process, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. I am curious though, so applying that to like an everyday real thing, somebody could get super caught up in the news, which is full of scarcity and fear, and that can really drag them down negatively. Or they could ignore the news, but then they might feel like they're not making impact in the world or helping out whatever is going on or whatever matters to them. So how could they combine the two so they're not brought down with the negativity, but are still adding more playfulness?
Yeah, well, I personally don't watch the news. And I always say if there's a meteor coming for Earth, I'm going to find out. And luckily I have a Jewish mother. So like my Jewish mother called me yesterday, honey, I heard you're going to have the worst storm in history coming your way. I was like, I looked outside. Looks like to me. So like I'll find out the stuff I need to find out. But at the end of the day, news is not inherently good or bad, right? The media, and we all know this. I'm not trying to be like a downer of the media. I think they mean well, but they have their objectives. Their objectives are to make money and to get ratings. And if you have a belief about the world that the way you're successful is to generate money and create higher ratings, then of course you're going to act in a way that does that. So they're innocent, but for what they believe is the right thing to do. We don't have to agree that that's the right thing to do. That's what they think is the right thing to do. So for me, the distinction that I came up with a while ago, and I use it all the time, anytime I'm thinking about things that serve me or things that don't serve me, or things like the news or things like politics or things like the economy and all these things, that it's very easy to be a prisoner of circumstance with all these things, which is the entire, premise behind Prison Break, is being a prisoner of circumstance or being a self-leader. I ask myself a very, very simple question. Looking at the thing in front of me, like let's say you enjoy watching the news for whatever reason because you love watching sports or weather, and then once in a while you're waiting for that, you get these terrible news stories that bring you down. You essentially can ask yourself at any given moment, is me attaching to that story, is me like the literal story on the news or the story going on in your head, this can be used in any way you want to, is attaching to that story in this moment, is it interesting or is it actually helpful, right? Because there's a lot of things that are interesting in the world, right? The thoughts that come in our head that we think we need to dive deep into and figure out all the root causes and find out the why and find out why this is all happening and why am I feeling this way and why can't I just get my ass in gear? And if I was just more committed or more dedicated, things would happen more quickly. And all that shit is extremely interesting, very, very thought-provoking, and usually not helpful at all. Right. So at any given moment, I ask myself, is this more interesting or is it actually more helpful? If it's simply interesting and it's not helpful, then I ask myself what would be helpful instead. So no matter whether you're attaching to a story on the news or a story in your head, ask yourself, is this interesting or is it actually helpful to go down this line of questioning? That
is a fantastic distinction. I really like that because it gives people an actual action step that they can do so they don't have to follow down that negative path. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. That was the first question? Oh, shit. Vanessa's watching. Vanessa, I've already said that this is going to be a downhill interview, that she should have never interviewed you first, because then I have to live up to too much, and I don't appreciate that kind of pressure. It's taking me out of my playful nature, so screw you for that. Just kidding. I love Vanessa.
All right. So you got 4 choices left.
Okay. Oof. Okay, now I'm going to go for Fruit Loops. That's what I wanted the first time, so Fruit Loops.
Okay, cool. All right, here we go. The only thing I'm not doing is I'm not eating them the way you would take a couple bites.
People got so upset about me eating them. You should be having a green smoothie. Do you know how much processed sugar is in that? And I'm like, you do realize you're watching the not so serious life, right?
Well, I just really quickly wanted to say that Kathy commented, wow, great insight. That was my brain. Interesting and making me crazy in my head, but not helpful to go there. Don't watch any news, my life, but it fits in a big way. That's awesome. Thank you, Kathy.
You and me both, Kathy. Anything that I talk about today are things that I am using on a daily basis because I am still trying to figure all this shit out.
That is such a good point. Like, even just how, this podcast for me is about playfulness and creating more playfulness in my life so that I can be more creative and open to possibilities. And so I just love, actually doing what we're teaching at the same time.
Yes. We have to, and that's, if anybody on here is a coach, I don't know if you have coaches that are watching, but that's like one of the big differentiators now. It's not your certifications and it's not all this other stuff. It's that you're actually willing to do the work on yourself, right? So if you're not willing to do the work on yourself, that's okay. This is not a judgment thing, but don't go out and coach people. Do the work on yourself first and then go do that stuff. So I love that you do the work on yourself. The reason I brought that up is because I know from you and the work you do with Vanessa that you do this work on yourself. You're not just like a talking head. And so I love that. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come on here, because I know how dedicated you are to your own growth and your own development. So thank you for doing that in the world.
Absolutely. All right, here's the next question. And I just wrote time, which time.
Okay.
Question mark. Go.
Magazine.
No, but my question about that is a lot of people I talk to, myself included at times, get super stressed about managing time. And especially with really serious things serious things. We have bills to pay and families to raise and jobs to go to and long commutes and keeping the house clean and all these things that can definitely get in the way of playfulness. And I think that kind of falls into a little bit of the distinction of what playfulness actually is. And it's not necessarily hanging out and not doing anything all day and just having fun. Right. But for someone who doesn't feel like they have enough time, who feels like, well, they can't even really have fun until the weekend, and then the weekend comes along and they might not even be able to have fun then because they're cramming in all the stuff that they didn't do, what would you say to them?
Yeah, the time thing is big, and it's big because it's such a fundamental misunderstanding. And this is something you'll learn about it in PP and Playful Prosperity, and also I talk about it in the book. I forget sometimes what I wrote in the book and what I didn't, but I call these things SFMs, simple fundamental misunderstandings, right? Because it's not a serious thing. Like not having enough time or feeling like you don't have enough time, it's actually not a serious thing, but we make it a serious thing, right? We make it, again, one of those things that's very interesting. It's extremely interesting for me to sit here and talk about how swamped I am and how busy I am. Not very helpful. And what's different about me, or not different about me, but one of the things I'll say about me is that I am not the type that like, I just like kind of flow through life and I kind of work a little bit here and work a little bit. Like I work my ass off. Like I hustle, like I make shit happen. And that's why like one of the taglines of Playful Prosperity is joyify your mind, gamify your business, and get shit done. It's not like joyify your mind, gamify your business, and sit on the couch manifesting, eating bonbons and money falls in your lap. Like that, plus that would have been a stupidly long title for a program. But I really believe in like doing the inner work and doing the outer work. So I'm somebody who very often will default to, oh my God, I have so much to do and I don't have enough time to do it. And what I realized there, another distinction, surprise, there's going to be a lot of those, is that anytime I think that I'm swamped out there, I'm actually swamped in here, right? Like 1,000%, because if all of a sudden, let's just say I had all this stuff on my plate, and I have just all this stuff that's due, and I have clients to do stuff with, and I'm doing a launch, and I have this Facebook Live video to do, and I'm writing this thing, and I have people to get back to, all this stuff happens, and then God forbid my best friend calls me and tells me he just got into a terrible car accident and I need to go to the hospital. All of a sudden I have plenty of time to go to the hospital. Like my time I just had something added to my plate, and yet somehow I regained time. So swamped is a state of mind. Right? Swamped is absolutely a state of mind. And people will say, oh, that's not true. I do have a lot of stuff on my plate. No, I get it. I would never lie and say, no, you don't have all these things on your plate. What I know is that either I can be super stressed out and tight and serious about all that I have on my plate, or I can choose to bring a relaxed and clear and calm and conscious and creative mind. That's a lot of C's. A clear, calm, creative, conscious mind to what I'm doing. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on, but I actually only have one thing going on at a time. So let me just pen down, head down, and do this thing. And it's on the lock screen of my phone, which you probably won't be able to see, but it says, yeah, it's almost impossible to see, focus only on the 10 feet of road in front of you. Right? Focus on the 10 feet of road in front of you. And if you literally are paying so much of your love and attention and focus into the one thing that's in front of you, you will never be out of time. You will have all the time you could ever possibly need for whatever it is that's actually most important for you to get done. So yeah, a lot of things going on, a lot of people vying for your attention. But number one, we have to be courageous about what we say yes and no to. And number two, we have to realize, like I saw in a coffee cup, Beyonce has the same amount of hours in a day as I do.
Right. So it's all about priorities and
yes,
and picking what matters the most in the moment.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the problem. We've as a society, we've somehow decided that it was okay to pluralize the word priority. And there can't be multiple the most important thing. That just doesn't grammatically and language-wise make sense. And so as soon as I slow that down and I say, how could I ever have more than one thing to do at a time? Then I literally have all the time in the world to do that one thing. And whatever gets done, great. And whatever doesn't get done, great. And that's a whole other conversation about what we do with our commitments, which we can go there if you want. But just at a high level, it's how we show up to these things. And if we create language that says, I'm in scarcity, I'm in lack, I don't have enough time, a belief has only one job, and it's to prove itself true. And so we will see evidence everywhere that we don't have enough time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that it's all just the lens that you're looking through. I mean, that's what creates our world. And actually, that's what Prison Break is about, is breaking free from our outer circumstances, creating our inner world, and letting our inner world create our outer world.
Yep, you nailed it.
Very cool. Bonnie Michelle says, love that distinction. If I think I'm swamped out there, I'm really swamped in here. So yeah.
It's how it feels. It's like, it's true. And once I get really innocent with that, like I'm like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. And you'll learn about, well, I don't want to spoil one of the tools of Playful Prosperity, so I'm not going to say that. You're going to hear a very funny thing in like week 3 or 4. There's a module called Unmanage Your Time and Stress. And so we'll talk more about this a lot. But it really is like just noticing like, oh, I'm doing that thing where I'm swamped in here and I think it's out there. Just that initial realization. And what I'll do too, like I know for me at least, I will feel swamped in my shoulders, right? Like when I am swamped, where is it for you? Where do you feel the tension when you get?
Oh, it's absolutely my shoulders, and I get a headache all up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I slump more. Yeah.
Totally. So, and I'll notice it. It's funny sometimes, like if I'm coaching somebody and I kind of get out of presence for a minute for whatever reason, and I see myself on Zoom, I'll notice that my shoulders are up a little bit. Like I'm like, oh fuck, look at me, I'm totally out of integrity, and I'm still nodding and like focusing. My fucking shoulders are up. So anytime I get into a place of tension or a lack of presence, I'll literally ask myself, what if I just got ridiculously relaxed right now? Like what if I just got the most stupidly relaxed that I've ever gotten in my life? And immediately when I ask that question, my shoulders drop and all of like the blood kind of, flows down through my body and into the chair. And immediately my mind starts slowing down. It's like the snow globe. I don't know if you can see the snow globe up here. I'm a huge snow globe person, something else we'll talk about in PP. And it's like when the snow settles in a snow globe and everything is right with the world, that's how our minds are. When it's all shaken up, it feels like we can't even see our hand in front of our faces. But once the snow settles, give it 30 seconds or a minute, all of a sudden we're just in this whole new place of possibilities and creation.
I love that. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to another question.
All right. It's funny. A lot of people hate on Frosted Flakes, but I dig Frosted Flakes.
Oh my gosh, these are my favorite of all 5, Frosted Flakes.
They're so good. And that's one of the ones you can eat like without milk too. They're just really good.
Yeah, just snack on them.
All of them without milk. I'm such a fatty.
All right, here we go. Why is play such a powerful part of your day and who you are being in the world?
Ooh. See, immediately when you ask that question, I go to like the opposite, and I think about like, how is my life when I'm not bringing play? And it's like, oh, that's right, it fucking sucks. So I get to cheat a little bit because from a very young age, I just was kind of a class clown. And what we, kind of know about the way validation and approval looks when you're a kid, if you do something and you get love for it, you kind of keep doing it. Even if you then start getting reprimanded for it, you still do it. So from a very young age, like I was kind of I love to be on stage and entertain and be a performer. Like, I was the kid, singing like, late 80s ballads and stuff in the living room with my whole family, or trying to sing at least. And I just love being on stage. So being in that state of performance was very natural to me. But as time went on, and especially as I got serious about my career, that played a back seat where I was still a happy, jovial, jokey, funny, always liking to make people laugh kind of guy on the outside. But on the inside, it was totally different. I was taking everything so seriously. And I got into IT at a very young age. I was in IT for the better part of 15 years, became the director of engineering and operations for a tech firm based in Orlando when I was in my mid-20s, making well over 6 figures, doing really well in that respect. Also at that time in my life, I had gotten up to the heaviest I had ever been weight-wise, 332 pounds, and really just in a really bad place internally. And what I know now about that point of my life is that I was just far too serious and made things far too significant. I would blow up, Aubrey, at everything. Like literally, somebody cut me off in traffic, I chased them. Somebody, my boss said something on the phone I didn't like, I would literally take my $600 smartphone and threw it against the wall and like smash it into a million pieces. I had like zero control over my emotions and thought that was just the way it was. And in retrospect now, looking back, playfulness in the way that we defined it in the beginning was what was missing, right? It was, how can I bring a more lighthearted approach to this thing? How can I not make this thing so significant? And so my life without play is everything is significant. Everything is a personal attack against me. Everything is me being wronged. Everything is insurmountable. It just becomes, there's this clip of, the movie The Notebook, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's a romantic women's movie. So of course I've never seen it 4 times. And the thing about The Notebook is that it's this beautiful romantic movie, whatever. But there's this video online. I use it at all my keynotes. There's this video online where somebody took The Notebook, they chose different music, and they creatively cut some of the things and made a trailer for The Notebook that makes it look like this terrible, like crazy horror movie. like
Really?
like a suspenseful thriller where instead of it being this beautiful romantic story of two people meeting and their trials and tribulations, it was literally a horror story. And without Play, I live a romantic novel, coming of age, inspirational comedy as if it's a horror movie, right? That's the director's cut when I'm not living a playful spirit, when I'm not living a life of playful prosperity, is that I turn my comedy and my inspirational movie into a horror movie. When I'm living in this spirit of play, I'm able to creatively shift my lens on that stuff and say, cool, this is what's really going on in this moment. And given the conditions of the game under which I am playing, what would I love to create going forward?
I love that. And that falls right into Prison Break, right? Because it's all about how to be a self-leader rather than a prisoner.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a moment by moment thing. That's not like, I don't want anybody thinking like, I need to figure out because I'm reading this book, or I need to figure out because I'm listening to Aubrey and Jason, am I a prisoner or a self-leader? It's the wrong question to ask, or it's an ineffective, it's an inaccurate question to ask, because this is a moment by moment choice. In any given moment, we have a choice whether to show up as a reactive prisoner of circumstance or a responsive self-leader, right? It's so when people ask me, people have asked me this all the time after talks and trainings, they'll say, I get it, or I've read your book, or I love what you said. How do I become a self-leader 100% of the time? And I'll tell them, let me know when you find out. Because I don't know. I mean, this is not a permanent pervasive personality disorder. This is a moment by moment choice. So right. To me, that's a very empowering thing, because if anybody watching this is like, oh yeah, I'm such a prisoner. 5 minutes ago, my kid said something and I totally yelled at them. I'm such a prisoner. Well, no, you had a prisoner moment 5 minutes ago, but that's an unemotional historical data point. It has no bearing on the next minute or the next thing your kid does or the next person you talk to or the next action you take.
That's so cool. And actually, was it echoing?
No.
It's not? Okay. I'm reading The Inside Out Revolution by Michael Neal, and I just read a quote by Sid Bank where he said, you're one thought away from happiness or one thought away from sadness. Yep. And so I love that it's moment to moment. You don't have to be all of anything. You have the choice in every moment to decide whether you're going to believe your thoughts or and go down this path versus this path.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes actually, and to make sure, like one of my big things, Aubrey, and it's like, it's one of the things that I can't not talk about is like, I so want all this self-leadership stuff to be not so serious. Like I so don't want people beating themselves up and like, shame and blame and obligation and all this crap that a lot of personal growth will tell you, not the circles that we run in, but a lot of personal growth will say you need to be fixed and all this stuff. And so I want people to also know that having a prisoner moment that you recognize, even in the moment that you're having a prisoner moment, that's actually progress, right? So if somebody cuts me off in traffic and I yell at them and I say to myself, oh dude, you're being such a prisoner right now. That's cool. Like even if I still decide to yell at them, at least I have the understanding, the truth that I have chosen to be a prisoner in this moment, and I'm choosing not to do anything about it. I'm going to stay being a prisoner for a few minutes. To me, the more gentle we can be with this transition and starting to live our lives more as a self-leader than a prisoner more often than not, I think it's a lot easier for us to choose that on a more regular basis, if that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely, because awareness is everything. Like once you're aware, then you have the option to make the choice. Yes. Very cool. All right, buddy, we got two more. All right. Apple Jacks is not my favorite, so I got to go Cocoa Krispies. I'm just not an Apple Jacks person. I love that it almost kind of sort of rhymes, like it's an approximate rhyme, and as a former rapper, I appreciate that, but taste-wise, just not into it. All right. This one. Whoa, okay, and this is what I used to promote this talk with today because I love it. It was one of the things that drew me to you in the first place because it's like a provocative statement for me. It excites me and it sort of triggers me at the same time. It's, what does it mean that you don't have to be serious to be successful? And the reason, really quickly, the reason that kind of triggers me is it's back to that, like, yeah, I get it, but I have to go to work and I have to get this stuff done. And yeah, I want to, and so I know that falls back into the distinctions of playfulness and all of that, but I would just love to know, because you said this sums up your life's work in one sentence. Yeah, totally. And it's a little bit what we talked about in the beginning was the opposite of serious being sincere, right? So the opposite of serious is not aimless. The opposite of serious is sincere. And I totally get, and I can fall into this too. Again, remember, this is not the reason I do this work in the world outwardly is because it's the work I still do on myself inwardly, right? That's why I'm so uniquely qualified. If there ever gets into a time where I literally can't relate to any of this stuff because I'm such a guru, self-leader, not so serious, whatever, I stop teaching this because it's not my thing anymore. But I really believe that the opposite of serious is sincere. That when I am calm and all those C's, calm, cool, courageous, creative, conscious, when I'm all those C's, I show up better. And so what it comes down to is it's like, yeah, you got bills to pay. Now, of course, we can really back this up and say you don't have to pay your bills. You don't have to go to work, right? I mean, that is an effective line of questioning for people. That sometimes, it is good for us to check our language on saying that we have to do things when we really don't have to do anything. But beyond that, let's just say, yes, there are things on your plate. Then the analogy that I like to use, or maybe it's a metaphor, maybe it's a simile, I always screw these up, is if you know the steps to cook a particular dish, right? Like there are certain ingredients and there's a certain recipe and there's certain utensils and appliances you need to cook a dish, and you know that you have steps to do so. Does it change the outcome of the dish if you are super relaxed while cooking versus being super stressed out while cooking? It doesn't. The same dish happens. And actually, maybe if you're super stressed out, you miss a piece because you're just so frantic and actually it comes out worse. But it doesn't come out any better because you stress, right? The time is going to pass anyways. The steps you're going to take anyways. The things that are going to work well and not work well are going to work well and not work well anyways. So why not give yourself the gift of not literally killing yourself, which is a choice, when time is going to pass and things are going to happen anyways. So it's like, I have bills to pay. Cool. This is a call for me to be more creative. I have, kids to take to soccer practice. Awesome. They have to be there by 7 p.m. We'll get them by 7 p.m. Me stressing in the process doesn't make me any more effective. So this is not like a woo-woo, touchy-feely, like you should really get in touch with your heart because in your experience of the world will be different. Like that's fine too. But at the end of the day, like I think most people want to be effective. And when I coach, like I just got off the call with one of my one-on-one clients who's a CEO of a company, and he's a Russian guy, and he doesn't want to talk about touchy-feely shit at all. So I talk about all the touchy-feely shit with him, but I just say, oh no, this is about effectiveness. He said, oh, that seems a little touchy-feely. No, screw touchy-feely. This is about effectiveness. And he goes, oh, okay, well, if it's for effectiveness, then I'll do it. I think the majority of us want to be effective. We want to be able to create the things we want. So if we know that we typically do our best work when we're in flow, versus being ready to blow. And this is an exercise I'll do with people in live trainings. I'll split a whiteboard down the middle and I'll say, tell me what it feels like when you're about to blow. And I'm stressed and I'm angry and I snap at people and I'm upset and I'm moody and I don't eat and I don't go to the bathroom. And they have all these things. And I say, great, tell me what it's like when you're in flow. Oh, well, I feel creative and I'm collaborative and I'm innovative and I feel love and I feel joy and I feel playfulness. And I say, great, which one of these do you do your best work in? And they say, no doubt, when I'm in flow. Like, yeah, I get stuff done. I'll still get stuff done when I'm ready to blow, but I get stuff done in that stressed out state, despite the fact that I'm stressed, not because of the fact that I'm stressed. And that's a big misconception for people, I think.
And that's huge. That's huge. I hear that I am echoing, so I'm just going to switch to headphones really quick.
Okay, sure. Bonnie, am I echoing too, or is it just Aubrey? Just so we know. Thank you, Bonnie, for letting us know. Bonnie, you're awesome. Bonnie is now the producer of the Behind the Scenes podcast.
Yep. Is that better, Bonnie? I'm hoping she'll type soon. And I apologize to people. I heard that if I can hear echoing, that it is supposed to be me. So I don't hear echoing anymore. Do you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay, great.
You sound powerful.
All right. Moving on to Apple Jacks. The one you didn't
I guess if I don't have a choice. I mean, now I'm going to be a total prisoner about it, but okay, whatever.
Okay. What is the meaning of life?
47. Next question. So I would never be arrogant enough to answer that for anybody else, but I will be slightly arrogant enough to answer it for myself because I can't know either, right? I have no clue. So I'll answer this in two ways. Number one, I'll say so for me, like the meaning of life or the purpose of life is just to live life in this moment, to intentionally use my life instead of being used by life, right? That's like, to me, that's the thing. Like if I can go through my life and know that more often than not, I was intentional about using this gift that I was given, as opposed to being this, like the flailing, the tube thing that's in front of like the used car dealerships, the flailing inflatable tube guy. If I'm not that more often than not, that makes no sense grammatically, then I think that's pretty good. My own personal belief system or mantra, which is kind of like my life plan / business plan, it's all kind of the same thing, is to leave people with 5% more joy than I found them, right? That's my guiding principle for everything. So for me, my purpose as of now could change in the next 20 minutes. For now, my purpose in life is to leave people with at least 5% more joy than I found them. And I feel like, back to your question in the beginning, how does playfulness kind of help the world, heal the world, do whatever? I think that there is that kind of domino effect of having loving, creative, playful, fun people in the world that are experiencing joy and wanting to extract that from others and share it with others. So my meaning of life, definitely leave people with at least 5% more joy than I found them.
That's beautiful. And I've, I hear an echo. I'm sorry, everyone. I'll try to wrap this up so you don't have to hear me echoing anymore. But I think that's a beautiful message to share with the world, and it's one of the reasons I follow you, because you definitely leave my life with 5% more joy, and hopefully everybody who watched this today feels the same. I'm sure they do. I don't have any more cereal boxes, but I do have one more question.
No, you can't. No, I'm sorry. This is not the way this works. No, just of course.
And it's about Prison Break really quickly, and it's just like, what one piece of advice would you give people, aside from maybe reading the book, which I actually would recommend everybody do? What one piece of advice would you give them that would help someone become less of a prisoner and more of a self-leader, like as soon as they get off this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, God, there's so many different things. I think it really goes back to awareness. Right, just seeing in any given moment the role that we are playing in the experience we're having in the world, and that can be a really, really, really basic thing. But really, just like slowing down at any given moment and saying, if you just were to ask yourself this question at any given moment, and you kind of have to read the book, but not really. Like, you get it. I think anybody here gets in context, right? Like, we don't really need to explain what prisoner and self-leader is. Prisoner, you know what it feels like when you feel like you're just like a victim of everything around you. And self-leader, you know when you feel like empowered, like you're playing a real role in whatever it is you're feeling, right? So the number one step for me would be, anytime you have something that pops up as a challenge for you, is to ask yourself one of two questions, or both. Both is even better. You get points for doing both. Number one is, how can I be 5% more of a self-leader in this moment, right? That's one question. How can I be 5% more of a self-leader? Not 100%. 5% more of a self-leader. And the second question, and the one that really is, again, one of the guiding principles of my work and my life, is how can I play with this, right? It's like, not how can I overcome, not how can I push through, not how can I will myself to move forward. How can I play with this? And it just, to me, that brings up a lot more of a sense of levity, a lot more of a childlike curiosity, and a sense of, let's just see what's possible here. So how can I play with this is one of the number one ways you can move from prisoner to self-leader.
That is such a cool question, because it just feels like the way it brings in the play, there's like the ladder of consciousness. And if you're down here at fear and scarcity and disappointment and discouragement, like nothing can be created from there. Right. And, to get up to the ladder, there's lots of ways to get up to the top, where there is enthusiasm and joy and creativity. And just the how can I play with that almost just helps you climb, like even just one rung, and you can see things differently.
Yeah, and that's our natural state. The top of the ladder is our natural state. We'll talk a lot about that in PP also. But the top of the ladder is our natural state, and it's like a hot air balloon that has all the little sandbags around it. You can pull the lever for the fire all you want, but if you have these sandbags around you, it's going to be very slow to go up, even though you're meant to rise. That's how we were designed to function. So by questioning these thoughts, saying, is this really a bad thing that's happening to me? Is this really something that's devastating, or is it just maybe a little uncomfortable? Is this person really out to get me, or are they just doing the best they can? Every time we challenge those things and ask those questions, or questions like, how can I play with this? It's like we're just taking the sandbag off and just dropping it. And it's so simple to do that. And then all of a sudden the hot air balloon does what it needs to do. It rises up the ladder, and there's no like climbing or clawing your way up the ladder. You just get back to your natural state. That's
so awesome. I love that. Thank you. Speaking of PP, Kathy just asked, and I definitely wanted to give you a chance to talk about your Playful Prosperity program, because I think enrollment does end in 2 days, right?
It does, yes. Midnight on Friday night, which is so funny. I was working with my team and we're like, wait, is it midnight on Friday night, or does that mean it's Saturday midnight? So it's 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, Friday night, maybe a minute later. So we start officially this Saturday. The first video training will be released this Saturday. We start our live calls every week next Wednesday for 8 weeks. And you can go to playfulprosperity.com to see all the details. It's just an incredible program of mainly, entrepreneurs and coaches. There are people that have corporate jobs as well. And it's anybody who wants to not feel like their life is so heavy and so serious, and have the tools and the understandings and the insight and the tribe to help them start bringing this self-expression, this playfulness, this true authenticity that is our natural state more into the world, more into our interactions with our family, with our friends, with our businesses, with ourselves. That's what we're doing. So we have an incredible tribe. Aubrey, you've seen there's just amazing stuff already happening in the tribe. People are just amazing and lovely and incredible. So enrollment ends at the end of this week, and you can go to playfulprosperity.com for all the details.
You guys should absolutely do this, because I'm in it, so it's going to be fun. And clearly Jason's running it, so it's just going to be an amazing 8 weeks. I'm super excited to just bring more playfulness to everything I do and to help impact the world. I thank you so much for being here on my second episode with me. This has been super fun, and thank you for continuing to be such an inspiration for so many people. You're leading the way, and I do think that is absolutely how we're all going to change the world, is by just incorporating more joy and more possibility. And so anyway, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, first of all, you're awesome. So thank you so much for saying that. And thank you for the work you're doing in the world, because you're another leg of that stool. Like, we need more playful marauders out in the world like you that are doing this. So thank you for doing this. Bruce says PP for life, yo. Bruce, another Playful Prosperity member. Love that guy. So thank you very much for inviting me on. You can hit up playfulprosperity.com. You can hit up thejasongoldberg.com, which is actually pretty boring. Don't go there. And then if you want a free, you can, it's adorable. And if you want a free copy of Prison Break, and there's a digital, audio, or paperback if you're in the States, you can go to getprisonbreak.com/PBFB, like Prison Break Facebook, PBFB. So getprisonbreak.com/PBFB, or like peanut butter Facebook. I don't know, either one. So, and you can get a free copy of the book there, and I hope you enjoy it.
That is so fantastic. And you guys should definitely take him up on such an awesome offer, because the book is great. And it will absolutely change your perspective on things. Whether you're into personal growth or not, you will walk away from this book changed. So it's awesome.
Thank you, Aubrey. You're the best.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on the second episode. There'll be another one coming, like I said, someday. I'll find someone new and exciting to talk to. But this has been fantastic. And again, thank you so much for joining me. And I will put a summary recap of some of the main things we covered in the comments. You guys can check that out at any point. And I hope you all have a great day. And thank you, Jason.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.